Hey, Cameron here again, and it is a new release of a Surface. This is the least amount of time between Surfaces ever, going from the Surface Pro 10 to the Surface Pro 11. Copilot, this is the Surface Pro 11 OLED with Snapdragon X Elite, and we are going to look at it today. So this is just a first look at this device, although I do have several benchmarks and some impressions and things that I want to talk about with this device. Because not only is it the first time we're getting OLED, which is great, but this is a completely new platform, and Microsoft has been throwing this down our throats that we're going to have a new Copilot experience and just release this on release day without half the features present. Like, I get it, like that you want to have that feature ready and safe and secure. And I don't want that feature anyways, to be fair. Like, I have no reason to want like the ultimate in corporate spyware platform on my device and also sold to me as if it were actually a feature. But that's just me. I I made a video about this device, about the state of Windows on ARM back when we had the Surface Pro 9 5G, and I had some issues. With the device, mainly compatibility. That was the big thing because I couldn't want it run Microsoft's own like top tier game, Minecraft Java. I couldn't install a printer driver. I couldn't print with my printer. I couldn't play certain games. They just wouldn't start. And I'm here to tell you that I am coming away from this device impressed. For instance, here's Persona 3 Reload, which would not even run on the Surface Pro 9 5G, now pushing anywhere from 60 to 90 frames per second, like just straight off the bat at 1080p. Really impressive stuff. Compatibility is actually much better than it was on the Surface Pro 9 5G. And performance is quite good in general. However, all of that is super nuanced and we need to look at it individually. But first of all, let's just talk about the device. Now, you can use your old Surface Pro 9 type cover. I'm actually using the Surface Pro 10 for Business type cover that has the Copilot button. And no problem using your old type cover with the new Surface Pro 11. It looks exactly like the Surface Pro 10 for Business, which, if that's new for you, what you're going to be seeing is basically rounded corners on your display. And other than that, it's pretty similar to Surface Pro 9. But yeah, it feels and looks and acts almost exactly the same as a Surface Pro 9 or Surface Pro 10. However, I will say the operating system in general, installing Windows updates, going through things, it is snappy. It feels snappier than an x86, x64 device. And I don't know if that's because every single, like, it's like an SoC that's like has all the drivers installed. There's not a lot of like random things floating around. Anyways, that's besides the point too. But this looks and feels exactly like a Surface Pro 9. Okay, let me tell you the first thing you need to do when you get this device. It does have HDR, but if you're not using HDR like in a game or going to be watching an HDR movie, turn this off. This is the first thing you need to do because look how washed out the colors are, at least compared to what it's going to look like once I turn HDR off. So turn off HDR, set it to vivid. The colors are so much better now. I'm telling you, do that. Use the HDR when you need to, but it's like a lot of regular PC monitors. The SDR doesn't look good when HDR is turned on for colors and things like that. So that's my recommendation. Okay, so straight to the benchmarks. Okay, first thing I want to say, I have had no compatibility issues so far where it will not run something, which is great. That's a huge difference. Cyberpunk, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Time Spy, Furmark, I think I said Cyberpunk, Final Fantasy 15. All of these things just run. Maybe they don't run well sometimes. Maybe they're not running natively, but they run. And so far, no crashes, no blue screens. And let's look at what that performance looks like. Now, we are in Excel, And the same people that like to say that the Surface Pro 9 is not a gaming machine are probably the same people who want to say, why are you using Excel? I don't know. It's easy. You know, I'm I'm not a professional reviewer. I'm just doing this for your benefit. Sue me. I don't care. Leave the video. I don't care. Like, anyways, Time Spy. Okay. The best way to compare the Surface Pro 11 is with the Surface Pro 10. I know that the Surface Pro 10 is supposedly, you know, it's not, they're side-by-side products, right? So we're basically comparing the Intel with the Snapdragon. And that's what we're going to be doing here because they're both current gen. That 165U in the Surface Pro 10 is about as new as the Snapdragon X Elite. Other than X Elite is a completely new architecture. But okay, let's look at, and I keep switching back and forth. We'll look at the numbers, but I want to get a few things out of the way. And that is, look, I know that this is meant to be, it's like a low power, like everyday use computer. It's going to use less power. It's going to, be very snappy and usable for video and browsing and all sorts of things, and native apps be really good. Great. That's all great. On this channel, I've looked primarily at how well they do in gaming and CPU functionality, and for the most part, it has been on the x86, x64 platform. So I'm going to treat this like a common consumer who, likes to do lots of different things on their computer. But right now we're looking at kind of the gaming comparison and what is going to happen when consumers, this is a consumer product, when they spool up their games and their x86 and x64 apps, which they're going to do, what's going to happen to them and what is performance going to look at? That's what I'm looking at. If you want just only run native ARM benchmarks on this, go watch a different channel. I'm going to give you what I think are pretty practical, what people are going to be doing on these machines as consumers. But anyways, that's my rant out of the way. Let's look at the numbers. Time Spy, we're starting off pretty weak here. The Snapdragon X Elite only got a 1886, where the Surface Pro 10 got a 2364. Now, for the most part, when you're looking at the power consumption of these two devices, the Intel one maxes out at 40 watts from the power brick, where the Snapdragon X Elite seemed to be tuned to probably 28 watts SoC, and then the rest of the machine is, using a few more watts, which made it be about 33. So that's the watts used. And so in Time Spy, if you take into account the Intel used more power, this is kind of an efficiency number, scores or frames per second per watt. So you can see that in Time Spy, and yes, I know the X Elite is having to go through a translation layer. I know that. Please don't spam me with comments saying I don't understand. I'm just showing you what happens when someone tries to run these things, okay? Like, I get it. Run a native app, you'll get much better performance. But there is no native ARM Time Spy. That's the point. And Microsoft is telling you, hey, this is a device you can do anything on. You're a consumer. Anything you run, it's going to run it. So let's look at how well that compatibility layer works. That's what we're looking at. So Time Spy 1886. So really not a good outcome in this one. And even in efficiency, the Intel Surface Pro 10 is actually more efficient in Time Spy. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. We averaged 26 frames per second on the Intel Surface Pro 10 and only got 22 on the Snapdragon X Elite. The Surface Pro 10 needed 40 watts to do that, where this one only required 33. So the efficiency was actually better, even though the score was worse on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is, to see it this close, and one is running natively and one is having to do ARM to x86, x64 translation. The Snapdragon, it's impressive that it's doing this. It's not super competitive in a lot of these benchmarks, but okay, let's go to Final Fantasy 15, and what you'll see is they actually had the exact same score. So whether you play this game on the Intel version or the Snapdragon version, I was roughly the same performance. The difference is the Snapdragon's using a lot less power, 32.8 watts versus 40. So if you look at that efficiency, the Snapdragon is actually much more efficient in this particular benchmark. Did pretty well in this one. So that's pretty cool. Let's look at Cyberpunk, and I do this at 1080p medium settings, no XESS, no FSR, and the Intel version got 16.19 frames per second, and the Pro 11 got 12.89. Again, Intel's using more power, the Surface Pro 11 using a little bit less, and they end up being very close, but the Intel's actually just slightly more efficient. Okay, so you guys know me. I'm the guy who uses Surface devices for gaming, and everyone tells me it's not a gaming PC. Anyways, so just for fun, I'm gonna try running VR on the Snapdragon X Elite and see what that does. So let's give it a shot. So to do this, I'm running a program called Virtual Desktop, and I have no idea if it's gonna work or not. Okay, I'm now using the computer using my VR controllers, which, great, that's something. Let's see if it will actually launch Steam VR. It's actually running fairly smooth. It's not mind-blowing, or yeah, this is not mind-blowing at all. I mean, it's mind-blowing that it's working. The fact that this is the compatibility is enough that I'm doing this. That's kind of cool. Man, should I try Half-Life Alyx? All right, we're getting crazy here. Okay, we actually are in the loading screen. I can see my hands. The downside is the fact that it's running 20 frames a second on the title screen. 20 frames a second, but Half-Life Alyx will run on your Snapdragon device. Okay, so let's kind of go through a lightning round of things that I noticed about this device. It only comes with a 39-watt charger. However, if you plug it into something more beefy, I have seen it pull upwards of 60 watts when it's charging the battery. So it can pull 60-ish watts. You're better off with a larger charger than what they give you in the box, just like we saw in the Surface Pro 10. Again, it looks exactly the same as the Surface Pro 10, other than the OLED screen is a lot brighter. Some people will ask, is there graininess on the device? And yes, there is quite a bit of graininess when you are looking especially at white on this machine. The OLED is very bright. You can see it lighting up my face, but it also goes very dim as well. It goes so dim you can barely see it. So that it is kind of a trademark signature thing that you'll see on Surface devices, being able to be used in very dim light, which is a feature, by the way, to go very low brightness in addition to very high brightness. So I did like that about the OLED on this. It looks great. It looks like the caliber of being a Surface panel. Surface Laptop Studio 2 aside. Download speeds were very quick when you're transferring over Wi-Fi. It has Wi-Fi 7. I was seeing, over 800 megabits per second when I was transferring Steam games. A very quick Wi-Fi. Again, this feels very snappy. Anything that runs native on it clicks very quickly. So that is the Surface Pro 11. Some of the lesser known things that I've seen. But here's where I drill down to. What are the pros of having a Surface Pro 11 versus a Surface Pro 10? Well, you're giving up some things with either of the devices. Let's talk about the pros of the Surface Pro 11. You're going to get very good battery life. You're going to get, but here's the thing. If you're idling on I saw idle figures on the Intel and the Snapdragon. If you're idling doing nothing, Intel actually does a pretty good job about dropping its power draw down to almost nothing. And I saw very little difference keeping these processors just running idling. Very little difference in the power consumption under idle. It was like they were both like using 5.4, 5.9 watts when they were doing nothing. It's when you start to do things that the efficiency of the Snapdragon really wins out. Again, if you are someone who does not value battery life, if you always run your computer plugged in or near a plug, which I'm one of those people, I'm not away from a plug for long periods of the day. And I know lots of people are, and that's a super valid concern for people, but I never am like hunting for battery life on my Intel version. So the battery life features are not super appealing to me, although I totally get that they would be for certain people. The Pro 11 also has that OLED screen, which is very nice. I like that a lot. The Surface Pro 10 for Business doesn't have that OLED screen. I'd like to see them remedy that, whether introducing a SKU that either a SKU for the consumer with OLED that has Intel, or the business side offering that OLED screen somewhere. I know they're doing that they want to hide the OLED behind Snapdragon and give you free TVs and all these things because they really want to get you on that Snapdragon, because they can shove Copilot down your throat and get all your data and screenshot your screen all day long. Which, I get it. Some of those features are cool. I'm just not super interested in that aspect of AI. But anyways, I keep getting sidetracked. There's so much to talk about with this thing. But yeah, what should you buy? The Surface Pro 10 or the Surface Pro 11? Intel or Snapdragon? Intel or Snapdragon? Here's my take, my ultimate take. With the Snapdragon, the biggest thing you're missing out on behind the scenes is the OLED screen. And that has nothing to do with the chip inside the device. That OLED screen is really nice. The battery life is nice. If you want OLED and battery and that's a priority for you, get the Snapdragon. Unless you are the person who wants to use some sort of external GPU, or if you have random strange device drivers that you mess around with, because that's the only thing I found that this new Snapdragon Surface Pro 11 wouldn't do, is I still can't install directly the printer driver for my printer, which is not a huge deal. There's other ways to do it. I can install that on my other Windows machine and print remotely to that machine and have that machine talk to the printer. It's not a big deal, but device drivers still will have issues with ARM Snapdragon, even in the latest Windows 11 X Elite configuration. So I'm walking away from the Surface Pro 11 very impressed, because the Surface Pro 10, Surface Pro 11, Surface Pro 9 is very impressive, and this is really much better than I thought it would be. I expected to come into this review still seeing major issues with compatibility, and what I'm seeing is almost no issues with compatibility other than device drivers and perhaps a few games that are using anti-cheat functionality. But I really think that the people who make those anti-cheat features are probably going to get on board with that sooner than later, so we may see more compatibility come online. I'm impressed because there were so many things that didn't work well. Hey, I'm playing Minecraft Java, no issue on this thing, where before it was like, really, Microsoft? Like, you can't make your own game work on your device, your ARM devices? But yeah, is the Surface Pro 11 a buy? I think we've reached an inflection point, and I didn't expect to be saying this, but I'm really glad that this thing exists, because I think it's going to keep Intel on their toes, AMD on their toes. We're going to see massive improvements over the next few years on chips, massive improvements in efficiency. I don't think x64, x86 is dead by any means. I think Intel and AMD are going to come swinging very competitively into the space. Again, though, if you want the maximum compatibility and even maximum performance, the Intel one is still better than this. for a lot of things, especially if you're using that GPU for certain things. But yeah, if you're interested in Snapdragon, you're interested in compiling things for ARM because ARM's kind of the future. Like, there's a real case to be had for using this device. And the other thing I would say, let's talk about fan noise. Okay, I will trash on the Pro 11 just a little bit because so many people are like, man, this thing could be fanless and just give you amazing performance. It's like M3, M4. It's going to be better than Apple and like all this. Like, okay, this thing still uses 28 watts, just like the Intel version. The Intel boosts higher if it can be kept cold enough. And if for most things you're doing on a Windows platform, it's not more efficient in a lot of things than the Intel one, unless you have that native application. Because performance on most of the benchmarks that I took, way better on the Intel side, and it's not using a whole lot more power than this thing. So what's the point? You know, I get 2 or 3 extra hours battery life, but I'll sit around an extra 2 or 3 hours to wait for my jobs to complete. Like, and oh, well, look at this one benchmark that Snapdragon does. It can like remove this little filter on my Premiere Pro and do it. It's like, how many times you use that? You know, like, what is the overall performance comparison? And they're like sixes. They're like so close to each other. It is more efficient, but it is not necessarily more performant than those Intel chips. From what I've seen so far, obviously I need to spend a little bit more time with it and see what comes up. But this is an efficiency play. This is getting TOPS and AI down your throat so Microsoft can use that to improve their revenue stream and impress their investors. But if you just want a practical device, this could be it for you. But don't discount the Surface Pro 10 either, I would say. So yeah, that's my take on the Surface Pro 11. Better than expected. Really great compatibility. I'm impressed with the compatibility. There's still reasons to not want it, but here we are. It's actually a very nice machine, and I think it will serve a lot of people well. But don't expect weight savings. It weighs actually more than the Intel version. It still has a fan. The fan ramps up pretty loud, just as loud as the Surface Pro 10 or 11, which is quiet. It's very quiet, especially compared to gaming laptops. But there's no there's no benefit here over the Intel version unless you value battery life or artificially an OLED screen. That's my take, but it's better than I expected, and I'm happy with it as a product in general, as long as you understand, hey, I can't use eGPU, and I may have a few little compatibility issues that'll probably get fixed pretty quickly. So anyways, thanks for watching if you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe. Definitely will be covering more things with Surfaces, Pro 10 and 11, and we'll see you on the next videos.